Hi guys, how you doing?
Hey.
All right, so welcome back. This is another episode of the dVIN Roadmap series. This is episode 8, and today it's all about Bhutan. I have got Michael and Ann with me. Michael Juergens Ann Cross. They are the founders of the Bhutan Wine Company. So this is a really exciting project. If you didn't have a chance to listen to episode 7, it is a really good foundation for this episode where we're going to be getting into a little more into planning the inaugural harvest experience that's going to be happening in Bhutan. I'll let more detail about that. But specifically today, we're going to be actually talking about a steering committee that we're putting together to go to Bhutan and basically kind of map out the big event that's happening next summer. So my name's Jane. I'm the co-founder of Club dVIN, and Michael and Ann, I will let you guys introduce yourselves.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. I am Ann Cross. I'm one of the co-founders of the Bhutan Wine Company and the CEO. Really excited to share a little bit more with you about the project and what we have going on for some trips.
And I'm Mike Juergens. I'm Ann's better half and one of the co-founders of the Bhutan Wine Company. And yeah, we're doing some pretty amazing stuff here, and it's cool to have the opportunity to share it with the global dVIN community.
Totally. That's an understatement. Pretty cool stuff. So in this webinar, we're going to be outlining kind of what we're trying to accomplish with the steering committee, the nuances of the trip, the differences between the experimental and the commercial vineyards, which is east versus west, right?
Not really.
Not really. Okay, we'll get into that.
I've got a picture that explains it a little bit more clearly than talking about it, because it's kind of hard to wrap your head around.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll let you guys take the lead and and kick us off.
Well, let me try to share this deck so we can, if nothing else, look at pretty pictures of Bhutan. There we go.
And yes, guys, we are talking about Bhutan, like Himalayas. So if you didn't think wine could be made in the Himalayas, you would be wrong.
So this is just a kind of a high level view. And I thought maybe we could level set by talking just at a really high level, things that are cool about Bhutan. So for those of you who don't know where it is, you can see it marked on the map. It's it's right above India, below China, in the Himalayas, kind of right near Tibet and Nepal. It's about the size of Switzerland geographically, and it's more or less a giant oval, so it's not funky shaped. It is the only carbon negative country on the planet. It is revered for their approach to sustainable agriculture. It's a Buddhist country, so they really try to live in harmony with the land, and they grow some of the world's best crops there in specific verticals. And one of the things that I think I personally love most about Bhutan is this idea of gross national happiness, and this concept that the success of a country shouldn't be measured on the productivity of a society through GDP, but how happy people are through gross national happiness. And I think that's just an amazing way to live. And we're hoping that we can capture that spirit and energy in a bottle of wine and make it truly amazing. So just some fun facts about Bhutan. Our vision with the Bhutan Wine Company is, our goal is to not build a winery. Our goal is to build a wine industry. We think we probably need, at least 2,000 acres of vineyards for it to be really globally viable and relevant. But, we're viewing this with a 100-year timeline and thinking about, what do we need to do now so that, our grandchildren and their children will have the opportunity to experience some amazing wine from a country with very unique and just spectacular terroir. Now, everyone asks sort of what are you growing and what are you planting and where are you planting? And this is the $1 million question. So Bhutan's never had vinifera before. And so because of that, we don't know where the best sites will be. We can make some educated guesses, but we have a pretty high diversity of altitude, weather, rainfall, and soil. And because of the heterogeneity of Bhutan, they grow different types of crops in different locations. So like cereal grains might grow at 5,000 feet in altitude, but fruit might grow at 500 feet in altitude. We don't really know the best spots for grapes, and so we are trying different things out. We have currently 10 vineyards, one that's probably going fallow, and we're experimenting with 16 different varietals within those vineyards, 9 reds and 7 whites. 2 of the whites are hybrids, and Bhutan gets a little bit of monsoon pressure in the summer, and so we're also trying to see if hybrids might be a viable bet for some of the vineyards. The vineyards range from 500 feet in altitude to about 9,000 feet in altitude, which is probably the upper limit. I think if we wanted to, we could have the highest vineyard in the world, but it would be a lot of work, and I don't know that it would be worth it. So, but this all kind of feeds into the trip. And so let me kind of throw this picture up on the screen, which shows our current vineyards. And I think there's some things to point out here that are important. One is this concept of what we call experimental vineyards versus commercial vineyards. Since we didn't know how grapes would grow, we had to be very, very careful with importing foreign species into a kingdom that is, revered for sustainable agriculture. You don't want to be the person that brings in a disease or a pest or a virus or something that's going to cause problems for the local economy. So what we did was we initially started by planting 6 vineyards that were all small. They're all between, let's say, 1 to 3 acres apiece, at various altitudes ranging from 9,000 down to about 1,200 feet in altitude, and also ranging across the country. As you can kind of see, we have a cluster right in the middle. That's around the capital city of Thimphu. We have some to the west in Paro, which is the city that everyone will fly into when they go there. We have some stuff to the south, including all the way to the south at Gellifu. And then we have some things in the east. And so of those, 3 of them are now commercial vineyards. The vineyard marked Pinsa, and the vineyards marked Norzentang and Gorshalu. Pinsa is about 20 acres, Gorshalu is about 55, and Norzentang is about 75 acres. Not all of these vineyards are fully planted. The experimental vineyards are all fully planted because we're trying everything. At the commercial vineyards, we're taking a more careful rollout by evaluating what's working the best at those sites and then doubling down on those particular varietals as opposed to trying to guess ahead of time. The last vineyard that I'll just mention, which I think is really, really cool, is this Gellifu vineyard, which is far to the south. The Gellifu vineyard is in a very warm location. And because it's so warm there, we are actually doing a reverse harvest. So we'll start the growing season in around September, and then we'll harvest in February or early March in Gellifu.
So you guys will have 2 harvests a year.
So we'll get 2 harvests a year, which economically makes a ton of sense because you can, optimize your winemaking equipment. The other thing that's great about Gellifu is you can see it's right there on the border. And so that offers us great access to the port of Kolkata for shipping wine out. So we anticipate that probably over the long term, our largest production facility will be in Gellifu from a winemaking perspective. But that experimental vineyard is only a year old. So we're still validating that this idea of growing stuff in the wintertime will work there. So far, all indications look amazing. So maybe I'll stop there, Janet, see if you've got any questions about or anything you want to be a little bit deeper in on.
And this is fascinating. As a wine geek myself, really, really, really exciting project. But I'm wondering, do you already have a winery? Because we've heard about the Ser Kem winery and the incredible story about how it was named and all of that. But is there actually a brick and mortar winery somewhere?
There is not. We actually have the land for the winery. We have the blueprints done. We have the environmental clearances. We were all set and ready to go on building that winery. And then the pandemic happened, which slowed things down considerably. I mean, Bhutan was completely closed for like 16 months. And then even when they opened the borders back up, they did so very cautiously and carefully. It worked great for them. They were able to be insulated from the majority of the impact of the pandemic. But it slowed business down considerably. In our case, this was actually a boon because the wine location for Ser Kem is very, very close to the capital city of Thimphu. It's a beautiful site. There's already a microbrewery on the site. It's got 270-degree views of the valley. We're going to build a nice outdoor tasting patio and do all this stuff. What we are learning, though, as we got delayed a couple of years, every cycle we learn more about what grows there. And what we're learning is that west side of the country, if you look over on the map to the Norzentanga Gorshalu, I'm sorry, the east side. Yeah, my bad. The east side of the country, that's looking like where probably the highest quality grapes are going to come from, based on what we know today. And what you don't see, what is not reflected on the map, is there's a giant mountain range called the Himalayas between the east side of the country and everything else. And you can kind of see these little red roads on the map. There's only 2 roads, and they're a little squiggly.
No kidding,
Yeah, and those roads, they get a lot of rain in the summertime, and you have things like avalanches and stuff like that. So
it's not the easiest journey back and forth.
And so we don't have a good way of getting, hundreds of tons of grapes from the east side over to Ser Kem. And so based on that, we went back to the drawing board, and we are evaluating Gellifu as one of the primary locations, because that trip from the east down to Gellifu is much more manageable. Or even potentially over on the east side, which has a lot of benefits from a proximity to vineyards perspective, fewer benefits from proximity to shipping lanes and channels. So in the interim, what we are doing is we've built a temporary winemaking facility at the Bhutan Wine Company's offices, which are in Thimphu. And we're using a combination of that facility plus our microbrewery facility at Ser Kem for certain things like a cold room and lab equipment and whatnot. And those 2 locations are very near each other. So we have the capability of making wine in smaller batches this year. But it is not a long-term solution. And which is fine. I mean, I'm actually really pleased that we figured this out before we got halfway built with the winery, that how much of a pain in the ass the shipping was going to be.
Little blessing in disguise there, hey.
Sometimes you get lucky, silver linings. But it's funny.
Talk about logistics. This is quite a project you guys have taken on.
Yeah, it gets exciting. You can fly actually from the Paro airport all the way on the west to the airport all the way in the east. But
flights aren't necessarily consistent. It's very weather related. So sometimes they fly and sometimes they don't.
So man, we were there in October. Obviously, we got delayed a few days and then ended up getting stuck in the east today. And this was one of the things that cemented. I don't know if Valentina shared with you the exciting airport that you fly into on the east, but it is small and high.
Small and short runway.
Short runway, high. It's on the top of a mountain. It's exciting, but that's all part of the.
Well, I heard there's a Wikipedia. I heard there's like an article just about that airport because it's so amazing.
Well, there's a Wikipedia entry on the Paro airport.
It's the Paro airport.
It's the Paro airport.
Hear about.
Yeah, and they say that's the most dangerous international airport in the world to fly into. And I've flown in it a bunch of times. It's fine. The other one is way more sketchy, but it's not an international airport, so they don't count it. But I tell you what, man, it's exciting. So all of this sort of. You start looking at ways to get grapes, particularly from the eastern vineyards, into a production facility. If we have to go over mountains, it's going to be much, much harder. So All indications at this point seem to tell us that our long-term facility will be down in Gallifoo. Now, let's talk a little bit about the trips, because I think this is important.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
Just let them see some of the vineyard.
Oh, you want to see some photos?
Some photos.
Oh, look at these.
Before we do that, tell me what grapes are you growing?
Okay, so we can pop back up. So on the reds, we primarily planted international varietals, and all of the Bordeaux favorites, you know, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cab Franc, and Malbec, with Pinot Noir and Syrah. That was kind of our first round. The second round of vines that we imported a lot more of those, but we added Sangiovese and Tempranillo based on the recommendations of our viticulturalist, who had now had the time to study the terroir for 2 or 3 years and had thought that those might be doing well. And he's right. The Tempranillo in particular in the Gorchelou vineyard is just crushing it. So that's super exciting. On the white side, we did the same thing, you know, with international varietal, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Riesling, and Chenin were our primary ones. Chenin, I think, is going to do great in the hotter areas. Chenin actually was the first vine species to come online down at that Gallifoo vineyard, and it just looked like Jack and the Beanstalk. I mean, we had grapes within 2 months of planting first-year vines. I mean, it was that that spectacular. Yeah, so I think Chenin's going to do well in the warm parts. Riesling will do better in the cooler parts. Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay are doing reasonably well across the board. We planted Petit Mansang for 2 reasons. One, I love Jurançon. I think it's just awesome.
Me too.
But it's also super rain resistant. And so because of the monsoon pressure in the summer, that's what we settled on. And then later we added in Vidal and Traminette, once again, based on the recommendations of the viticulturalist and the monsoon pressures that we are probably going to expect. So I know without a doubt, with 100% certainty, that not all of these grapes are going to work there. And I also know with 100% certainty that probably not even all the vineyards might work. And that's okay. We're trying enough stuff and we're not committing to any particular form of action. We're trying to capture the terroir of Bhutan in a bottle. And if that ends up being warm climate Chenin, awesome. If it ends up being cool climate Merlot, that's great too. Like, we don't know, right? So I
think that's what makes it so exciting, right? Like this is so new.
Well, and I'll tell you, just as a wine geek, for 8 years now, we've been working on this thing, and I'm trying to imagine what that first bottle of wine is going to taste like. Right. I just hope it's as amazing as everything else in Bhutan that you eat and how good it tastes. But yeah,
you know what? I've heard from a couple people. Not a lot of people have been to Bhutan, right? Obviously, for a number of reasons. How many tourists get let into the country per year? It's like
I think it's about 30,000. Yeah, it's not an easy country to visit.
Well, I know a couple people who have been, and so far what I hear the most of is that every single thing that you eat in Bhutan that's grown in Bhutan is the most delicious version of that thing that they've ever eaten. So high hopes for the wine. Well,
and that's kind of what drew me to the place in the first place. We didn't go there to start looking for wine, to vineyard, land acquisitions. We were there to run a marathon in the Himalayas, and everything I ate was the best fruit or the best vegetable I'd ever eaten in my life. And I'm like, the grapes here have got to be spectacular, only to find out they didn't have it. So we solved for that.
Love it. Love the intensity. That's super cool. All right. So yeah, let's talk about the trips. So for anybody who doesn't know, and I'm hoping that everybody listening to this does, the Bhutan Wine Company has granted Club dVIN members the exclusive right to participate in the first ever Himalayan harvest. So the inaugural harvest of the Bhutan Wine Company, which is happening next year, which is going to be July 24. But this year, Michael and Ann are we're all starting to plan basically a steering committee trip to map out the logistics, because as we've just seen and heard, it's not going to be a simple plan to get groups of people around and sort of break ground on the Ser Kem winery and figure out what needs to be done and kind of map out. It's basically a draw next year's trip, right?
That's exactly right. And what we found is we did sort of a quasi dry run in October where we had a smaller group of people come over, and we went to almost every vineyard except for Galafu in a week's time. And it was a shit show with travel and everything else. And so I think what we've determined, so every time you come to Bhutan, you fly into the Paro airport. That's how you get into Bhutan. And so you'll notice that Paro, it's all the way to the west. And then the main cities are Thimphu and right around Thimphu, and you can see kind of the vineyards there. So what we envision is that probably everybody that comes is going to do one of two things. They're either going to come into Paro, then go into the center of the country to Bajo, Serbum, and Yusupong. And so that'll be pretty much the same for both types of groups that come. But then one group will go from there to the east, and one group will go from there south to Pinsa and Galafu. So the trip experiences will be slightly different. And this is really going to be a function of the weather that occurs the week that people are there, and a function of what the vineyard tending needs are at that point in time. What we're seeing, and we learn more about this every time we do a cycle. So Galafu is probably going to get harvested in around February or March. Norzentong and Gorshalu all the way over there to the east. Those two vineyards will probably be harvested in the end of July. The Lingmatong vineyard and the Pinsa vineyard will probably be harvested around end of August, early September. You can't really see it on the map, but both of those vineyards are at about, Pinsa's at about 5,000 feet, I think, and Limnatong's at about 3,500 feet, whereas Norzentong and Gorshalu are both down around 12 to 1,500 feet in altitude. So it's actually cooler, even though those sites kind of look like they're the same altitude. They're not. They're higher up on mountains. So those will be, late August, early September, along with Paro. And then the three vineyards clustered there around the capital city of Thimphu, those are probably going to be late September, early October harvest trips. So the point of all this is, depending on when someone's coming and depending on the weather that week, we're going to potentially go different places. And part of this is we're just going to have to be adaptable on the fly. So it makes it a little bit like a choose your own adventure. Like, we're not exactly sure what you're going to do when you get there, but we know it'll be cool.
Awesome. It's going to be an adventure no matter what.
It'll definitely be an adventure. So that's sort of the plan. And I think what we want to do this summer is, with the steering committee, take two groups over, one that will do the east and one that will do the west and the south. We think we're probably going to start the first week, which will be the end of July. The target will be to take that group to the east, because then if weather dictates that we can't, we'll have another chance for the following week to take the second group to the east.
Makes sense.
So that is the plan.
So we're looking at dates of July 23rd to the 30th for week 1, with July 30th being an overlap for both weeks. So there'll be one night when everyone gets together and kind of has a big dinner. And then the second week is July 30th to August 6th.
Yeah, and the overlap may be Saturday, it may be the 29th, but regardless.
Okay.
So it may shift a day or two one way, depending on once we get kind of the logistics solidified, but yeah.
Okay. And this is the steering committee trip, but the main event next summer is going to be 10 weeks long. Is that right?
That's the plan. Yeah. So we are gonna have a little bit of grapes this year, and we do plan on doing some micro vinification to make kind of a commemorative first bottle. So the people that go on the steering committee, they will have the opportunity to participate and do a little bit of work to be able to say they contributed to the first barrel of wine ever made in a country, which is spectacular.
So cool.
That wine will more than likely be a blend of a bunch of different grapes from a bunch of different vineyards, and truly just as a museum piece. Here's the first barrel. The first commercial release will be the following summer, 2024. And so, yeah, people will have a lot more volume. I think we're anticipating 40 to 50 tons from next year's harvest. So
Okay.
we'll have a lot more opportunity for people to get involved with working in the vineyards and winemaking. We want this to be an inclusive trip that allows people to experience Bhutan. So obviously we're going to let people go hike the Tiger's Nest and go to the Golden Buddha and do some shopping and eat some great food. But at the same time, kind of wrap that around a wine experience that will let them spend, a couple of days in vineyards. It would be awesome if we had wine for people to drink while we were there, and we will. It probably just won't be Bhutanese wine, unless we get super lucky this year, but I kind of doubt it, just given our current yield estimates. So that's the plan.
That sounds awesome. So what kind of work are people going to be doing in the vineyards? On both trips, actually, on the steering committee trip and on the main trip, other than harvest, is there going to be, is there anything else that needs to be done?
So there's a lot of things that could be done. So for example, we're constantly scouting new vineyard sites. And so it's entirely possible that we could have acquired some new vineyards by then, at which point, maybe people get to come and help us plant vines, which would be awesome. I remember when we planted the first vineyard in Bhutan, this is I didn't understand about just how embedded the culture is into everything that they do. But so we show up and there's a ton of monks and they're all there to bless the vineyard and they're doing this special ceremony. And I got to plant the first vine in the country with the head monk that was doing the blessings. And then every vineyard after that, they pick the day that you want to plant it because of numerology. And then, the monks will come out and chant for a day to bless the vineyard and make sure it has, all the trappings of success. The first vineyard we planted, while that was going on, a rainbow came out, one of those circle rainbows around the sun, which apparently was like this huge,
very auspicious sign.
Yeah. So plant the vineyard in Bhutan is dope. Let me just put it that way. That's some fun shit to do for sure. But I think, depending on when people are there, like if people show up in July, that's an awesome time to go out and help with harvest in the east, unless the storms are so bad that we can't get over the mountains, at which point we have a couple options. We can take helicopters. The weather can be bad enough to fly a plane, but still okay to fly a helicopter, or it could be so bad that you can't fly anything. So we might opt in for helicopters, or we might pivot and say, hey, we're going to go, down to Pinsa, towards the south, at which point that vineyard's not going to be ready for harvest, but maybe we could do some leaf pulling, some weeding, some pruning, maybe some grafting, depending on if we're trying to switch over these vineyards. I said we know that not every varietal is gonna make it in every location, so we're gonna be grafting in the ones that are looking better than others. We'll have
maybe even some things in the wine production process,
and even some things in the wine production process. We'll have this micro vinification site set up this summer, and then next year, obviously, we're gonna have the need for more capacity, and we've got a couple different strategies that we're working on for that. So I think the cool thing about it is every week of that trip will be an individual, unique experience. No person is going to have the same experience on 2 separate weeks.
Everybody's getting put to work, right?
Everyone's getting put to work, but we want to. This isn't slave labor. It's not. I'm not going to be out there like the overseer cracking the whip, making people dig. We want
people to have a good time.
Yeah. But also, to be able to say that you had a personal hand in the first ever harvest of a country. I mean, who gets to say that?
Who can?
The last time anyone got to do this was in New Zealand in the 1850s. This hasn't been done. Right. So what a cool wine experience.
Making wine history in the Himalayas. Yeah. Who can say that?
Not very
Not
many
many
people.
people.
No.
Probably about 120 Club dVIN members. That's about who can say. And Ann and myself and a couple others. Yeah. And
It's
so,
so cool.
yep. But we also want to give people the opportunity to experience the culture, experience the cuisine there. I will say, Bhutan is Buddhist, and the Buddhist religion is against killing things. So the vegetables tend to be a lot better than the meat. I just put it that way. But the vegetables and fruit are the best you'll ever have in your life. I don't know. Did Valentina tell you the story about the guava?
Well, I think you guys told a little bit of that story about the kid that was at the end of the suspension bridge, with the bucket of guava.
I was like, what is this? This is amazing. And it's a guava. And everyone's like, what? Really? A guava? This is an amazing guava. Yeah. So that's just kind of the experience that you'll have. And they have this really bitchin', Ann's a farmer's market person. They have this outdoor market that just has all these stalls of all these produce and spices and just.
And let me just tell you, they're very, they really rely a lot on their chili peppers. So the market in particular has peppers everywhere, but the cuisine also has a lot of peppers. And for someone who, it's a little spicy for me. So they figured out how to tamper it down a little bit for Ann,
but I love it.
The Ann special.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. We might have to think about our wine pair.
Totally.
I'm thinking some off-dry Rieslings might go really, really well. Maybe some.
You got to plant some Riesling then. Come on.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Good call.
We're working on it.
Awesome.
So that's the plan. I think, for the people that want to be a part of the steering committee, I understand we've already got a lot of interest and appreciation of wanting to be included in that first group, but our timing on it's short, right, Jana? We need to have kind of the attendee list finalized in the next probably 2-3 weeks in order to
so we do have the list. So we've contacted a bunch of people. If anybody is listening to this and hasn't been contacted and is really interested in participating in the steering committee trip this summer, just shout out to Dave or I. It's j@clubdvin.com or d@clubdvin.com. We're really looking for hardcore wine enthusiasts or people, who have a knowledge of wine or viticulture, right, Michael? It's kind of about what value you can also add to this project by coming and attending. So we are kind of handpicking.
100%. And I think, we want to create this experience for people, but at the same time, selfishly, I'd love to get value out of that, and having people who are knowledgeable that could look at things and have ideas of things we could do differently or things that we could try is a huge boon. So, if you're in it just because you want the boondoggle, I would suggest go next year. Next year will be much more boondoggly than the steering committee trip, which will be probably a little bit more chaotic, I would guess, as we figure stuff out. You're going though, right?
I'm always loving the language that comes out of your mouth, Mike. It's great. Boondoggling. Let's talk a little bit about cost though. So steering committee trip versus the trip next year, is there a big difference? What are we talking about here?
So the cost, we're not trying to make money on this thing. There are certain costs of going to Bhutan that are immutable. So for example, there is a tourist tax fee just to be in the country. Historically, that tax was about $80 a day. And then about 6 months ago, they bumped it up to $200 a day. And so will it stay 200? That impacted our cost estimates by about $1,000 a week, right? You take $140 times 7, that's an extra $1,000 a week in costs that we weren't anticipating. The following year, could it go up again? Could it go down? Don't know. So that's one piece that's unknown. Second piece that's unknown is the exchange rate between the Noltrum and the local currency in your home country. The Noltrum's pegged to the Indian rupee, and so it bounces around quite a bit. So depending on when you go, things might be, you might get better deals or not better deals. So that there's probably a 10% fluctuation with that There is a little bit of seasonality to when tourists are there. And so the transportation prices, the flights, the hotels change a little bit. So my guess is it's hard to be precise and say the steering committee trip is going to cost generally the same as the following year. I think they'll be directionally the same. I think also for the trips next year, we had talked about doing a bit more with bringing in a bunch of good wine for everyone to drink while we're there.
Yes.
So that cost, I don't think we're going to incur that for the steering committee. So my guess net, the big trips next year will cost, let's say 15 to 20% more, but that's a guess. Mm-hmm. We'll know a little bit more as we get a little bit closer. This is the challenge and the excitement of Bhutan is it's a dynamic environment. So you just have to be
flexibility necessary. Yes.
You gotta be,
and do we need helicopters?
Do we need
things? So yeah, I've got it.
Case in point, helicopters cost more than planes, and you can fit fewer people in them. So
wild.
Yeah.
Oh, this sounds like the adventure of a lifetime. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And we've only got, we're doing 2 weeks for the steering committee trip, and we've got space for 8 people total in each week. So this is a really, these are really small groups that we're talking about. So it's gonna fill up quick. I know we already have kind of a short list formed. So if anybody's interested, now's the time to speak up. And yeah, what are we missing?
And we'll go gallivanting around in the Himalayas doing wine stuff.
Gallivanting. I will be gallivanting. I expect everyone to gallivant.
Gallivanting will occur. You have our word on that. No, I think as we previously mentioned, we really want to make it more than just go to a vineyard and really try to immerse yourself in the Bhutanese culture and do some of the amazing things that Bhutan has to offer. And so we've got that on there. Obviously, hiking the Tiger's Nest Monastery is kind of a must-do for everybody that goes to the country. That's one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Photographed place on Earth or something. I think I heard.
It's got to be one of them.
I can tell you, we have about 1,000 photographs of it. So
we've done it a few times.
We've done our part.
I still take pictures.
Yeah, I've hiked it 5 times now, and it never gets old.
I can imagine. Valentina had so many exciting stories to tell. I'm thrilled to be able to.
She also hiked it in the rain, which
I heard.
It more exciting.
Coming down in the rain.
Yeah.
Man,
got a little slippery.
Yeah.
In places. But
we're going to talk about.
Go ahead. What's amazing is so you think about Valentina. So when she came over in October, that was where we did the giant trip where we tried to see everything, and we got stranded by weather on 3 different days. We were only there for 7 or 8 days, and it was just nonstop madness trying to get around in the country and do everything that we wanted to do. And that's why we went back and said we have to bifurcate these trips, or our people are just going to be burned out. But even with all that, she still came out and was like, "That was the greatest trip I've ever had in my life." Cool.
Valentina's a warrior.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we have kind of covered, I think we've covered what we need to cover for session 1. We're going to be doing another open session.
Jana, do we have the ability to take questions from whoever's on the thing? I don't know how the live stream works, but
we can. If anybody wants to put their questions into the live chat on YouTube, please go for it now. And then otherwise, shoot your questions over to us. Join our Substack, first of all. That's where you'll find all the Club dVIN news, all the new episodes of the podcast. So we're going to be doing another session of this that's open to the public in a week from today, I believe, at the same time. And then the 2 sessions after that are going to be closed to the people who are then confirmed to attend. And we're going to get into much more specifics about what to pack and kind of, tips and tricks about Bhutan. But next week's session is going to be open again. So that'll be kind of the last chance to ask your questions openly. You'll be able to ask questions if you're an attendee, if you're confirmed in the 2 weeks following. But yeah, next week is the last open session for the steering committee sessions. And then we'll be talking a lot more about the big inaugural harvest event, those 10 weeks after that. But yeah, I don't see any questions coming up here. If you have, again, feel free to join the Substack, ask us there in the chat, or send us an email to j@clubdvin.com or d@clubdvin.com. Do you guys want to have your email addresses in there as well, or should we direct them
I'm happy to
you?
let people email questions to you.
Yeah. You got
the
it.
one thing I would say is you can go to the bhutanwine.com website, and you'll see lots of pictures, a lot more information on each of the vineyards, and there's just a lot more detail there if you just want some background info. Certainly that's easy to do.
Yeah, and I will admit it, we are late. We also have a Bhutan page set up for our website that is still in final edits. So we're going to get some more information on that up there as well. And then we'll be publishing that link for everybody to visit. So
Cool.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you guys so much. Again, I have goosebumps every time we talk about this, and I'm just getting more and more excited. So really looking forward to it, and looking forward to next week as well to get into more specifics.
Yep.
Sounds great.
We'll tap that.
Awesome. Thanks,
Shanna.
guys.